Getting back to the Archie characters, we are now moving on to Betty Cooper. This is the original one that I've designed, and to show you the photo that I used to make my design, this is one I just got off the internet, and without further ado, let's get started working on Betty Cooper. We are going to need a standard rainbow loom in the offset configuration, and the bands we're going to be using are yellow, skin tone, gold, white, blue, and black. You will also need beads or bands for the eyes, and possibly a C-clip. There are a few attachments for Betty, and let's get started. We will start with her eyes, which I have pre-strung on a piece of Easter basket grass. And if you've seen any of my videos, you know that I really tout this stuff a lot. It's perfect. It doesn't break, it doesn't fray, it lasts forever. Anyway, so try that. For the eyes, we're going to need 2 white bands and 1 skin tone band, and beads or bands. So we are going to take a single white band and double it, tuck the end of our floss through, and we're going to slide our bead down our floss, making sure that we catch the end so that we can slide the bead down onto the band. And I use the term floss and grass interchangeably. It means the same thing. I say floss because I figure people are more familiar with that. Okay, so that's one eye. We're going to do the same thing again, a single white band and double it. Tuck the end of our floss through and slide our bead down, making sure to catch the end. So that we can slide it onto our band. I mentioned that you can use bands for your eyes, and all you would do is take whichever color band you've chosen for your eyes and double it. Wrap it 3 times around your hook, thread it onto a double looped white band, and do that twice so you have 2 eyes. And whether you are using beads or bands, we're then going to take a single skin tone band and slide both eyes onto our single skin tone band. And I'm going to set this aside on a holding hook. Go. And we will move on to our nose. And for the nose, again, we'll be using skin tone bands. And I'm going to take a single skin tone band and double it, wrap it 3 times around my hook. I'm going to even out the bands a little bit. And then I'm going to take another skin tone band and double it and slide all of these loops down onto my double looped band. And that's going to give me my nose. And what I'm going to do, I attach my nose when I'm looping. Some crazy quirk of mine, I leave my nose on my hook so that I don't forget to attach it. And why I think I would remember easier having it here or on my holding hook with everything else, I don't know. But anyway, for our ears, we're going to need skin tone bands, and again we're going to take a single skin tone band, wrap it 3 times around our hook, take another skin tone band and double it, and we're going to slide all 3 loops down onto our double looped band, and that's going to give us 1 ear. We're going to take another skin tone band, wrap it 3 times around our hook, a second skin tone band and double it, and again slide all 3 loops down onto our double looped band. And we can place our ears on our holding hook, and we will set this aside. And next we're going to make her arms, and for her arms we're going to need white bands, skin tone bands, and 2 black bands. We are going to start at the top of our loom on the right side peg and place 2 white bands 3 times going down the right side. And we're going to follow that with 2 skin tone bands going 2 times, continuing down our pin. And we're going to cap this with a single skin tone band wrapped 3 times around the peg. We want to do the same thing for the other arm, and we're going to take 2 white bands, and from the first peg to the second, we're going to go down 3 times with 2 white bands each time. We're going to follow that again with 2 skin tone bands, 2 times going down our left side. And we want to cap this with a single skin tone band wrapped 3 times around our peg. And before we loop, we want to grab a hold of a single black band and wrap it 4 times around our hook. And then we can reach in, and I'm going to start on the left side. I want to reach in through all of my cap band loops, grab the bottom 2 skin tone, and loop forward. And we're going to continue all the way up until we reach our last white link. And once we get here, we're going to take all of our black bands and slide them down over our white ones. And then we can loop above. Next, we're going to take another single black band and wrap it 4 times around our hook. And we can reach in and loop the right side, going inside our cap band, grabbing both skin tone bands, and looping forward. As always, we want to make sure that we're forming our raindrop shape. And again, when we come to our last white link, we're going to reach in, grab the 2 white bands, and slide all 4 loops down onto our white bands before we loop to the peg above. And now we're ready to remove this from the loom. And we can set these on our holding hook. And before we go any further, what I want to do is we need to take the black bands and put them so that we have 2 loops on one side and 2 loops on the other. So I'm going to take my hook and grab a hold of 2 of the black bands and stretch them out a little bit and tuck my hand through and slide the bands up, and then I'll even them out so that again we have 2 black loops on either side of the arm. Like that. We want to do the same thing with the other arm. Again, we're going to grab a hold of 2 of the black bands and stretch them out a little bit and tuck our hand through and slide the bands up. And again, that should leave us with 2 black loops on either side of her arm. And we can set this aside. I apologize if you can hear my dog snoring in the background here. Oh, Scooter, wake up. And now we need to move on to her sneakers. And for that, we are going to need blue bands, gold bands, and white bands. And we're going to start again at the top of the right side, and we're going to place 2 blue bands going down the right, followed by 2 gold bands, and we are going to cap this with a single white band wrapped 3 times around the peg. We're going to do the same thing for the other foot, and again we will place 2 blue bands from the first peg to the second on the left, followed by 2 gold bands, and we'll cap this with a single white band wrapped 3 times around our peg. And we can loop these. I'm going to reach inside, grab both gold bands, and loop them forward. Same with the blue. And we'll do the same thing on the other side, grabbing both gold bands and looping them forward in a raindrop shape, as well as the blue. And we can move this over to our holding hook, this one as well, and we can set this aside. Now, the next attachment that we need to make is her hair. For her hair, we're going to be using single yellow bands and our loom. And what we want to do is take a single yellow band and go down the right side pin 6 times with a single yellow band each time. 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we're going to cap this with a single yellow band wrapped 3 times around our peg. And we're going to loop this, and we're going to reach inside, and remembering that we've only used single bands here, we're going to loop forward in our raindrop shape, and we're going to go all the way to the top of our pin. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now we want to repeat this 2 more times so that we have 3 altogether. So go ahead and pause the video, and we will meet back here when we all have 3 hair extensions complete. Okay, welcome back. So we should all have 3 6-link chains of single yellow bands, and if you don't already have them on one hook, go ahead and place all 3 on one hook, and we are going to take a single yellow band, and we want to place it on our hook, and we are going to slide all 3 of our hair extensions onto that one single yellow band, and we want to form a slip knot. And we're just going to give that a little pull to tighten that up, and we can set this aside. And now I believe we are ready to band our loom. And we're going to start with yellow bands, and everything here will be double banded. We're going to start with her hair, and so for our first 2 bands, we're going to place them from the first to second peg in the center. The next 2 yellow bands will go from the first peg on the left to the first peg in the center, followed by 2 yellow bands from the first peg in the center to the first peg on the right. We're going to go down both sides, the left and the right, with 2 yellow bands, 2 times going down each side. Two for the left side. And 2 for the right side. There we go. We're going to move on to our skin tone bands for her face. And again, we'll still be using double bands. And we want to place 2 skin tone bands 3 times going down the center. And continuing down the center, we're going to place 3 bands for the neck, continuing where we left off. Now we're going to move over to the left side, and we're going to place 2 skin tone bands from the 3rd peg to the 4th, and 2 skin tone bands from the 4th peg on the left to the 5th peg in the center. We're going to do the same thing on the right side. Place 2 skin tone bands from the 4th peg up to the 3rd, or the 3rd peg down to the 4th, and 2 skin tone bands from the 5th peg in the center to the 4th peg on the right. We're going to move down to her t-shirt now, and for that we're going to be using gold bands and also white and black. So we're going to start down the center with 2 gold bands, and then we're going to move from the 6th peg in the center to the 6th peg on the left. We want to place 1 single black band and 1 single white band together on those pegs. And we want to do the same thing for the other side. A single black band and a single white band around the 6th peg in the center to the 6th peg on the right. And we're going to go down the left side with 2 gold bands. We're going to go down 3 times. And we'll push our bands down. We're going to do the same thing on the right side, and using 2 gold bands, we're going to go down the right side 3 times. Continuing in the center, we want to place 2 gold bands 2 times going down the center. And what I want to do now is take my hook to straighten out my bands, and I'm just going to roll my hook around on the inside of the bands just to even them out. And I have mentioned in previous videos that the neater your bands are when you start, as in when you have them on the loom or when you place them on the loom, the neater your final product or project is going to be. It makes for a neater look if you start with bands that are straight and not twisted and not piled one on top of the other, like offset one on top of the other and whatnot. Now we're going to move down to her belt, and for that we'll be using black bands. We're going to continue down the left side with 2 black bands for her belt, and we're going to go all the way across, continuing down the center and on the right side. Again, using 2 black bands each time. And again, I'm going to straighten out these bands. Those ones are okay. These ones are not. And these ones are okay. And now we want to move down to her jeans. And for her jeans, we're going to be using blue bands. And again, everything will be double banded. So I'm going to continue down the left side with 2 blue bands each time. So we're going to add 2 blue bands 3 times to finish off our left side pin. And we'll do the same thing on the right. Again, 2 blue bands 3 times going down the right side. And we want to close off her jeans in the center. So we're going to take 2 blue bands and continue down the center one time with 2 blue bands. Next, we want to take 2 blue bands, and from the 3rd peg in the center from the bottom to the 4th peg on the left, we're going to place 2 blue bands. We're going to do the same thing on the right side and place 2 blue bands from the 3rd peg in the center to the 4th peg up from the bottom on the right. And we want to cap this center peg with a single blue band wrapped 3 times around the peg. And now we're ready for our attachments, and we're going to, let's start with her hair. I'm going to take my slip knot band and double it, and I'm just going to place it over this top center peg, like that. And next, I'm going to move over to my other holding hook, and I want to straighten out my cap band on one of my feet here. It's a little twisted, so I'm just going to place my hook in and carefully rolling the bands around my hook. And that's just to even them out. And I'll do the same thing for the other foot. There we go. So for the feet, we want to attach the first one to the last peg down on the left, and the other foot will go on the last peg down on the right. And next we have her arms, and they're going to go on the 6th peg from the top on the left, and the 6th peg from the top on the right. There we go. And next we have her ears, and one is going to go on the 2nd peg from the top on the left, and the other will go on the 2nd peg from the top on the right. I think this one I need to even out a little bit as well. There we go. So again, we're going to place our 2nd ear on the 2nd pin from the top on the right. And next we have her eyes, and for her eyes we're going to place one end of our skin tone band around the 3rd peg from the top on the left, and we want to separate her eyes and stretch one band around the 3rd peg from the top in the center, and we'll place the other end of our skin tone band around the 3rd peg from the top on the right. And that's it right now for the attachments. So we're going to add our holding bands, and we want to take a single yellow band, and it will go around the 1st peg on the left and the right, and the 2nd peg in the center. A single skin tone band is going to go around the 2nd peg on the left and the right, and the 3rd peg in the center. Skipping the 3rd pegs, because that's where our eyes are attached, we're going to move down and place a single skin tone band around the 4th pegs on the left, the right, and in the center. And moving down to her t-shirt, we are going to take a single gold band and place it around the 7th pegs on the left, the right, and in the center. Another single gold band around the 8th pegs on the left, the right, and in the center. And we are going to place a double looped black band around the 9th pegs. So we want to place it around all 3 of those pegs and then loop it back over on top of itself. And we want to place a single blue band around the 10th pegs on the left, the right, and in the center. And now we're ready to loop, and we're going to start in the center, and we're going to reach inside our cap band, and grabbing the top 2 bands, we're going to loop over to the right. Our next 2 bands, we are going to loop over to the left. And now we can loop up the left side. So I'm going to reach inside my cap band, which is my foot, and loop forward in a raindrop shape to the peg above. And I want to loop all the way up to the neck, so I'm just going to continue grabbing both of the 2 bottom bands and looping them forward in a raindrop shape. And I want to make sure that I stay inside the holding bands. And when I get to the arm, I want to make sure that I am grabbing just the 2 bands, the white and the black, to loop forward to the center peg. And we can loop up the right side, reaching inside our attachment bands and looping forward in a raindrop shape. And again, we want to make sure that we're grabbing both bands and that we're staying inside the holding bands as we loop forward to the peg above. And we'll just continue on up. And again, when we get to where our arms are attached, we want to reach in and make sure we're grabbing just the white and black band and looping it over to the center. Now we can loop up the middle. We're going to reach inside, and again, grabbing the bottom 2 bands, we're looping forward in a raindrop shape. I find it's a lot easier in the middle row or column to avoid the holding bands as we loop forward to the peg above. And when we get to the neck, we want to remember that we have used 3 bands here. So when we reach our hook in, we want to make sure that we've grabbed all 3 bands and that we have none of the attachment bands or the arm bands. There we go. And we want to loop all 3 in a raindrop shape to the peg above. And I'm going to release some of the tension on these neck bands just by placing my hook down through the center of the 6th peg in the center and rolling my hook around that peg. And now we can start looping the face, and I'm going to reach in and grab the top 2 bands only, and they will go over to the left, and the next 2 bands will go over to the right, and the final 2 bands will loop straight up the center. And now I'm going to loop the left side by grabbing both of the 2 skin tone bands and looping them forward, and staying inside my eye attachment band, I'm going to grab both of the yellow bands and loop them forward. And again, staying inside my holding bands and my ear bands, I'm grabbing both yellow bands and looping them forward. And again, we'll loop over to the center pin, and now we can loop up the right side. And on this side as well, we want to be careful that we stay inside the holding bands and that we grab both of the bottom 2 bands as we loop forward in a raindrop shape. And we can continue up, again making sure we stay inside the holding bands and the ear bands as we loop both bands to the top center peg. Now we can loop up the center, and from the 4th peg from the top to the 3rd peg is where I always attach my nose. So we want to reach in and grab those 2 bands, and then I'm going to slide my nose down onto the bands, and then loop them in a raindrop shape up around the 3rd peg from the top. And we can finish off by looping the last 2 links. So we've got 2 skin tone bands and 2 yellow bands. And now we want to double check that we have looped everything. And it's usually pretty easy to tell if you look down the side of your loom whether or not you've missed looping a link of your bands. And this looks pretty good, so what we're going to do, I'm going to take a single yellow band and reach down through the top center peg, grab a hold of my band, pull it up through the center, and I'm going to form a slip knot. And I'm just going to give that a gentle tug. I don't want my bands to break. And now we're ready to remove this from the loom. So I'm going to start at the bottom. And now I'll use my hook and just carefully pry the bands off their pegs. And when I get to the arms and the neck, I usually reach my hook down through the center of the peg and roll my hook around to release those bands. The same thing with the neck. And the rest of the bands should come off fairly easily. And our last one. Okay, and as you can see, she kind of needs a little tweaking. She looks like an acrobat here, but we're not quite done. So we want to straighten her out, and we're going to stretch her out a little bit. And I can remove my hook, and I want to make sure that her eyes are facing to the front. And that her ears are in the proper position and not too high up on her head. And I can tighten my slip knot band. And what we want to do first is define her feet. And to do that, we're going to take our hook and place it down through the center of our gold raindrop, and I'm just going to give the bands a tug to the side. And I can do that for the other side. Again, placing my hook down through the center of the gold bands and just giving the bands a little tug to the side. And what that's going to do, this side isn't cooperating very well. There we go. That's just going to define her feet for us a little better. And I want to carefully separate the black bands so that it does look like 2 black stripes around her sleeve. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. And we also want her arms to angle down to her sides a bit more. So again, I'm going to place my hook down through the center of the white bands and give them a little tug. And that will angle her arm down a bit. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, going straight down through the center and just giving the bands a little tug. And again, that will angle her arms down a bit. And let's have her waving at us. And to do that, we're going to bend her arm at the elbow. So I'm going to go down through the first white bands after our skin tone and just tug the bands down. And that will bend her arm at the elbow to make it look like she's waving. And next, let's attach a mouth. And for that, we're going to use a single white band, throwing them around here. And what we're going to do is place our hook from the back to the front in the general vicinity of the mouth area. And I'm going to grab a hold of one end of my band and pull it through to the back. And again, going from the back to the front, I want to come up in the general vicinity of where the mouth should be and grab the other end of my white band and pull it through to the back. And what I'm going to do, we can secure these with a C-clip. So I'm just going to attach each end of these white bands onto a C-clip. And then we're going to, yes, definitely adjust her mouth, considering I have it wrapped up around her nose. So I'm just going to grab both white bands and give them a tug down towards her chin. And try to even them out a little bit. And the white bands are supposed to represent teeth or like a big smile. If you prefer, you can use just a skin tone band that would kind of represent her lips. Or you could use a nice pink band that could represent lipstick. So what we want to do now, I want to take our slipknot band and I'm going to wrap it a few times around her ponytail. So I want to make sure I have all three. And I'm going to go... Oh, of course I broke it. Oh dear, that was my slipknot band. Alright. Time for a little emergency surgery here before I lose it. All my bands. I have a very fine tipped crochet hook, so I'm going to use that to go through all of my bands to the back, and I'm going to grab another single yellow band and pull it to the front, and I will just form another slipknot band here. I think this time I'm going to tuck my ponytail through and then form my slipknot. Okay, there we go. And I'm kind of glad that happened. It just goes to show that accidents and mistakes can happen to everybody. So again, I just want to take my slipknot band and carefully wrap it around our ponytail. And we just need to go around a few times. And I guess one or two more times. I just want it wrapped around enough times that it kind of tightens up on itself so that it will look natural. Okay, and now what we need to do is take a single gold band and we're going to do the same thing, go around and around, and we're using the gold band like a hair scrunchie. So actually let me use two. I'm going to use 2 gold bands for this. So I want to double them. It'll just make for a thicker scrunchie. And I'm going to place her ponytail through, cross over my bands, and continue to go back and forth like that, making a ponytail scrunchie for Betty. And we can adjust this once we have all of our loops done. The important thing is to make sure that we're tucking all of our hair extensions through. We don't want to leave any out. There we go. And now again, I'm going to take my fine tip crochet hook and I'm just going to grab these gold bands. And I don't think I have all of them, but I just want to try to stretch them out a little bit so that they're covering the yellow bands. There we go. Okay, and we can straighten out her hair extensions. I know I keep calling them extensions. They're attachments, but they're technically extensions, I suppose. So I'm still not very happy with my scrunchie here, so let me fiddle with that for a little bit. And again, I'm grabbing my gold bands. And I can roll them around my hook. Okay. All right, there we go. So what I want to do is fix her eye again. I think you'd call that a lazy eye, perhaps. Okay, so what we're going to do, because obviously her hair isn't going to be standing straight up on her head, but because these are bands and not actually hair, they're going to kind of do what they want. But we can help that along. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take her hair and I'm going to pull it down to the side. And I want to grab where I've attached it and just bend it, kind of like we've done with her feet, so that will kind of train the bands to lay down a little bit, and then they're not standing straight up. And it looks like I need to fix her sneaker. And her arm. Okay. And if this continues to be a little bit unruly, I am going to just attach that with a C-clip. So there you have it. This is Betty Cooper from the Archie Comic Book collection. And thank you so much for watching. Please comment below and post pictures if you use my tutorial to make Betty. I'd love to see your rendition of her. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I have a whole lot more Archie characters to come.